My name is Aidan. I am the founder and lead strategist at Foster Interactive. Happy to, after this, at 4 o'clock, we have our session with, we have our time with sessions for questions and working on it. So if you're curious about AI, happy to jam on that together. But if you have questions in the meantime or between the meetups, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love geeking out on this stuff, so happy to connect on LinkedIn and answer any questions for challenges or things you might run into. And also just, I'm one of the organizers that helps organize Drupal Toronto, so I hope to see everyone in future meetups. That'd be great. So to start, Drupal AI. It is a module that has tons of submodules in it. It actually comes from a sort of history of a whole bunch of different folks working on cool different modules in the early days. And there's been this rally to come together to have this common framework that we can all sort of use as the basis for integrating AI into Drupal. I would say there's really 3 categories of things that it does, and we sort of have to separate them all out. AI for site building, literally helping you build your site faster and easier. AI for content management, so you're running your website and it helps you manage that so that it's, taking care of boring tasks. Or moderation. It might allow you to use less people to help you manage those difficult tasks. And then AI for end user features. So the actual user of your website can interact through an AI-enabled tool. Getting set up, I am skipping for today because of time, but basically you get an API key and you enable the AI recipe, which we just saw in the talk, and you paste in the token. That's basically it. So I've got a video here. The hardest part is signing up for an API key. This is for OpenAI's GPT, but it works with Anthropic as well out of the box, but there are many another provider in the works. So it's kind of what's cool is it's agnostic as to which AI tools we can integrate with. So if you like the open source ones and all that, like by all means, you're welcome to use those. But right now it's Anthropic and OpenAI. So let's look at the first kind of feature that we get out of the box when you enable the module. And so I'll put this under the category of AI for content management. And it's a small one, but it's actually a big one to me. This is AI-generated alt tags on your fields. And so just for folks, if you're not familiar with what alt tags are for and do, they are basically the text equivalent of an image that's read aloud by assistive technology like screen readers. And if you're not aware about it, it's a legal obligation to make accessible websites. It is probably the it's like the simplest thing to implement as part of being basic accessibility compliance. And so, you just need to include the tag on your image and a screen reader will read it aloud. But if you're in Ontario or soon upcoming in the EU in June, it's going to be a legal requirement to have certain basic accessibility on every website. Sorry, Ontario's been since 2016. It's been a law. EU is starting in June. And so, while it's simple from a technical point of view, I have observed that it's hard for people to write decent alt tags. And sometimes there's turnover in teams and we might train someone how to do alt tags and now someone else takes over and they kind of drift in quality over time. So this is a video I put together just showing how AI alt tags will work. So what I have here is a content type with a multi-image field. And I picked some examples that are representative of different kinds of images. A flower, an abstract, my daughter's drawing of a cat, and a photorealistic image. And you just hit generate with AI, and that's it. And it does a pretty darn decent job. Pink abstract waves on a black background. This one I thought might trip it up. Drawing of an orange tabby cat with green eyes. It does a really decent job. People sitting in a bright room listening attentively, I'm like, maybe I don't like that one. Hit the button, regenerate again. Now it says one person reading a book. So yeah, not attentively, exactly. So it does a really solid job. I'm not saying it's perfect, and it doesn't have the context of where the image is placed in your website, which are kind of an important part of doing alt tags. But compared to many of the poor alt tags I've seen in websites, it is way better than having an untrained person trying to write alt tags. And it's a massive time saver, absolutely.
And clients would love it because they don't have to pay for anything.
Yeah. Well, and so it works. What I'm really impressed with is like I've tested with a large number of different kinds of images, and unless you put a logo in it, it does a great job. Logos, I put the OpenAI logo, and it's like tries to describe what the shape is, and you're like, okay, it doesn't know it's a logo. But accepting that, with that exception, it's been rock solid. Next one is AI integrations into CKEditor. So this is not installed out of the box with the current version of the AI recipe. Basically, what you do is you enable the module, and then if you want to use certain features, you create taxonomies for them, such as tone and language options. These become options you can see inside of the editor. And again, this configuration process is pretty straightforward. You go into extend and enable the module. So that's our first step. And then once the module is installed, we can go in and create some taxonomies if you want to use the tone and language setting or the language settings. And so what I'm doing in here is making a vocabulary called AI tone, and it's just a standard taxonomy vocabulary. I'll show creating an actual term in there later. And then we've got another one called AI language. Now, and those are basically just being used for config in the system. And then most of the work that we do in here is under text formats and editors. Unlike pretty much every AI module in the suite, which is configured in the AI sort of bucket, this one you do in the text editor. And simply once you install the module, you get the little like ubiquitous sparkle icon thing, and you drag it into your editor, and then it sort of adds this configuration for AI tools inside of there. And there's all these different options, and realistically, you probably don't want to use them all, but I have gone through and turned on all of them. And so, so there's summarize, which will make a short summary of text you highlight. Generate AI will write stuff from scratch, fix spelling, pretty obvious. Help and support just gives you more help context inside of the tool. Reformat will rewrite text in different settings. And now we get into tone. So I enable it. There's some sort of glitch going on here where it like closes the tab when you enable something. And this is where you have to pick the taxonomy you created. And so that's sort of configuring it to say, we'll see soon, there's like a drop down of options for tones. And that taxonomy is your list of tones you will see in that drop down. So translate, I had to make sure AI language taxonomy is selected. I just want to note this translate is just inside of CKEditor. This is not touching the full translate layer that is in Drupal. We are just working within a text editor. So if we see this in action, I'm going to go into the privacy policy page here, which comes out of the box as default content as part of the Drupal CMS recipe. And it says the content needs to be edited. So what I'm going to do now is go into the AI assistance and then generate some content. So this is actually a project I'm working on with my 10-year-old daughter who is starting her lemonade business, but online. And she's going to sell custom drawings of cats, and people like upload their photos of their cats, and then she draws them and charges $5 or something. And so I'm like, great, like this kind of website needs a privacy policy. So I press generate, please write us a privacy policy page for it. And so it is contextual. If you notice, our privacy policy says we're going to collect photos of your pets, is automatically generated from the context of that AI, which is cool. So now you press save. Now we've got our page sort of ready to go and published there. So moving on to demo some of the other tools that are integrated into it as well. I'm going to go in and start populating those taxonomies and giving us some like options so that we can see and explore with the tone setting. So one tone we could do is like, especially related to a privacy policy, it could be the formal legalese tone. I want this to be as uptight and terrifying a privacy policy as possible. On the flip side, we could do something like kid language, And, you know, that I've said maybe we could be kid pretending to be a cat in their privacy policy. So again, very far ends of the spectrum on where that could go. And so and then for configuration on the AI language, let's just add French to like test it out. So now if we go into our privacy policy page and edit it, these settings need to be managed by selecting the text and applying a transformation to existing text. And I'll go into tone, and now we've got our options we created. So the formal legal tone, I go ahead and press change tone. And you can see as it started to write out there, you know, yeah, we hereby, you know, the procedures delineated in this policy is hereby acknowledged. So it's very uptight. And yeah, your personal information shall not be disseminated to third parties save for compliance with legal requirements. You know, so very kind of uptight language inside of there. And now just to show an alternative, we can pick the kid language pretending to be a cat, change the tone, and it's the perfect policy. Asking kitty questions, name meow is in there. So very different. And it's not a feature I'm using in here, but there's a setting where you can add in more context and use the description of the taxonomy term, which is a field that comes on taxonomy terms by default. And you can just like say, use the description of the taxonomy term instead of that little text. So I could say, I like to use the words possum and like literally write out examples of what I mean by ridiculous cat language and pop it in there. So now I'm highlighting this and translating it to French. I forgot to pick it in a second, as we can see. I can't assess the quality of this because it's cat language legalese translated to French. Okay, so I have no way to assess it, but you know, from a legal point of view, I definitely never suggest to use AI generated content or cat themed AI generated content, but it is really interesting in an approach where you could put in brand and tone language and style guides and like review that, you know, just do a review or a rewrite of your content as well. I also find it super useful for testing. So instead of like ipsum text, you're like, write some realistic text that, you know, that represents the kind of content in your website, and it's a lot easier for use in that way. Whoops. The next tool, and this one comes out of the box with the AI recipe, is AI assistance. Now, this is super crazy. So we're talking about using a chat window in Drupal to build stuff in Drupal. Basically, it's built on the concept of AI agents, which are kind of like bridge modules to other modules. They bridge the assistant to the other module. So it allows the AI assistant to do stuff inside of Drupal and interact with those modules. This ecosystem is expanding rapidly. And for now, this is site building only, but I am certain I have not heard it, but I just know where we're going. The experience builder we talked about, Pierre talked about, that's coming in the future. Once there is an agent or agents that allow you to interface with the experience builder, you're going to be able to describe what you want, and then it'll start building it, which will be very exciting. But even for now, we just start off with some basics. So, you know, what do we want? You know, what can the Drupal agent do today? And so you simply type in, hey, what can you do? And now it can answer questions about what it can do. So primarily right now, it can create content types, it can create fields, and it can interact with taxonomies, creating both taxonomy vocabularies and terms in those vocabularies. And so that's what it can interact with directly. But what's really cool as well is, you know, Drupal's documentation is maybe not the best because it's got like 20 years of history and has evolved organically. And so now you can use something like this to kind of create a task list or a guideline for yourself to do something in Drupal. And so it's saying, hey, can you create a guide for me on how to add a role that only lets users upload blog posts. So that's like a use case that I hypothetically need in this site. So maybe I only want my daughter to upload blog posts to this cat website. And then it said, do you want me to do it, or do you want me to create a guideline for you? And I said, let's make a guideline. And so now it's mapped out all the steps, create new users, create roles, create the content type if it doesn't already exist, and then test it. So what's really cool is you can just jam on a topic in a chat window and have it, for the things it can't do for you, it can put together some instructions for you to help you go through the steps on how to get started and how to actually do that. So if you're coming into Drupal and you're not sure how it works or what to do, ask it, and then it'll help you, help you go through those steps yourself. Now, here's another example, though, where we can take a look at, how can I assist you today? And I'm saying, we're working on a personal website for my daughter who likes drawing cats. Please make a gallery content type. We need an image field that allows multiple drawings to be uploaded. The gallery needs a title and allows me to add an image meta tag that appears when I share the page on social media. Notice this is not a particularly well-crafted prompt. It's not like super organized. It's just really me thinking aloud what I wanted. And it goes, great. I've set up a gallery content type. I've created a title and image fields, and I've created an image meta tag. And it says you can, customize and modify this thing I just created right here. And then there's these two little icons there. One copies it, and then this one's opening up all the code actions that have been generated, which I don't know, but assume is kind of what the agent is using to build this content type. And so now I can go in, and now there's this content type that didn't exist there before. We can see the fields that are drawings. It came up with like decent labels for what I described, decent field names. It's mapped the types and put it together inside of the system as well. And now the title I asked for, but that's a default field in Drupal, so it didn't create a new field called title, which is great. I was kind of expecting a title field in there, and then I'm like, okay. So now I'm saying, please create a taxonomy called drawing style and add in some examples like pencil, color pencil, watercolor, and abstract. And so now, because I'm maintaining a chat context and I'm going in threads with it, it knows that I'm talking about the content type it just created. Like, I didn't actually say add it to the gallery content type, but it said I've successfully created a taxonomy and it's added it into the field list. And then if we go in and see the terms that are in here, it's populated those with the ones I requested. So now you can keep on going further. And again, note, I'm not saying in that taxonomy. I was just like, create some more examples. So I'm becoming very vague on purpose to just see what happens. And then it says, let's proceed with terms like this. So now it's asked me whether it likes its input. It's funny. Sometimes it asks, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm like, cool, okay. And now it's gone ahead and added those items in just automatically with pretty decent examples related to the terms that were mapped out before. So this is really, really quite impressive for a new way to do site building that just simply didn't exist months ago.
It's a huge time saving, right? Because if we think about it, just the click, click, click that anyone would do is just crazy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that you can even, so for example, if you say, create me a select field with 5 stars, it will create. But if you say, hey, create a 5-star field, it will know the module, the 5 stars, and create the 5 stars in there. So it's just insane.
It's very, very exciting. And so some tips on this, because again, what you're seeing here is RC2. So there's even a new release since I did this testing, but definitely do one chat conversation per like content type or feature or thing you're working on because of that contextual thread. If you switch to something new, it might start building pieces in the content type that you're not, you assume it might, you assume it might be working on the newest one, but it might decide to work on the older one. Also, because it's calling OpenAI, there's a bunch of times where like, if I put in a crazy huge prompt, it might time out. And so there could be a timeout going to OpenAI and back, which just happens like inside of Drupal and outside of Drupal, that it just happens. Or maybe it's just too complicated and in what order it might break up. So if you take a long series of instructions and just break them down into pieces like you saw there, like make the content type. Okay, let's jam on one of the taxonomies. Let's jam on something else and just sort of focus conversationally, almost like how you talk with a team member and like work through something is actually probably the best way to work with it.
Yeah, so the limitation is context per minute.
Yeah.
So on an OpenAI, when you have the API, so if you start sending, so there is a limit of a context per that you can send, but also there is a limit of a context per minute.
Yeah.
So if you start sending a bunch of stuff, so let's say that if you're prompting ChatGPT, there is no limit in there. You just keep prompting. On the API, you have to time. So it's every 60 seconds, and then you gotta wait, I think, another 30 to 60 seconds. So if you're doing, I hope, sending a bunch of stuff. So I was working on that. I was doing actually 800 images alt tag, running this stuff. So I had to basically run X amount of image tags and then wait 60 seconds and then
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what it is.
Perfect.
I have one question. So it is not storing all the context anywhere in the website, right?
It'll be storing it temporarily in that chat, and you press a clear chat button and then it'll lose it. Yeah. So it does disappear. No, you cannot reuse it later yet. I think there's
But that
probably
will
thoughts.
be,
Yeah.
Be saved for sure in some sort of an entity that someone say, okay, I wanted to kind of rebuild ChatGPT within the site and have those discussions that we have in there. So for sure it will be.
The other thing I want to point out as well is that sometimes the prompt tells you it can do something it can't. So I said worked in views in a web form, and there is a module. There's an experimental module to add on web form support for AI, which I did not enable. And it's like, you want me to do that? And I'm like, yes. And it's like, oh, actually, I can't do that. Let me give you the instructions on how to do it yourself. So just keep an eye out for that as the agents sort of expand.
The reason for that is because of so the AI guys that are implementing all the stuff, they are way ahead of us. So there's a lot of stuff in there that is already built. They can't really remove from the code, stay there, but it's not available.
It's not,
to the final end user. So that's what I was seeing there quite a lot, because I was watching some demos from them. Yeah, it's just crazy where it's going, where they are already.
Perfect. And
in your initial prompt, you were using some Drupalisms, like creative content.
yeah.
You tried using like more general language that like a person who doesn't know Drupal.
I have not tested that out much. I went the other way, where I took our like full detailed 40 field prompts, and I'm like, here's my CSV of this detailed spec, and it was too much. It was just like, that's where I was like, oh yeah, we got to break this down into smaller steps. But a great experiment for the future.
Yeah, actually, if you guys watch the keynote, or you go and try to find the freely give, basically is the maintainer of the AI module. So they ran a whole accessibility and usability test with like people who never use Drupal. And as soon as they saw that chatbot, they start doing exactly that.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they start using, they start creating content types without knowing they were creating content type, but they wanted to create a content type.
Yeah.
So it does work. But even if it doesn't, so behind all of this, when you guys install, you'll see all the prompts are there. So basically the AI developer guys, so they put in the prompts that they think and it's on there, and that's what we are using. But if you go in the back on the settings, you will see there's dozens and dozens of fields with the prompts where you can start adjusting the language better for those type of requests. So it's not really, this is what you get. You can really change this with the prompting.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to move on because I'm going to run out of time here. So one other really cool feature that's in here, I'm not going to demonstrate it because this could be like 2 talks on its own, is the AI search. And so this is the first example of like AI end user features that are in the website. I'm just going to describe at a high level what it actually does. So you've got Drupal with content in it. Let's say it's pages. And when you save a page, it gets into, it gets passed to like the search API basically and sent to OpenAI. You could use different providers, but that's what I've experimented with. And it converts your HTML content into vector embeddings. Now, again, that's a big topic, but let's just call vector embeddings is basically the language that LLMs speak. So it gets converted to LLM language. That vector embedding for all your content gets saved in a vector database. This is a tool called Pinecone, but there are other database options as well. So now basically all of your content in your website gets converted to AI language or LLM language and saved in a database. Very similar to like maybe how a Solr database might index your content on the website as well. Now on the Drupal side, you input a search input field and people can write natural language searches. Help me, I am interested in finding something about Italian food, let's say. That query that they type in gets sent to OpenAI and also gets written as vector embeddings, which AI language, it gets converted to LLM language. Now, because we've got two sets of data, one is the query and one is all of your pages in LLM language, it's actually not simple, but like doable to compute how simple your query is, how similar that person's query is to your content. So for example, if you had bacon carbonara is like content described in pages of your website, and someone asked for Italian food, from an LLM point of view, those are associated and those are similar. So that would be a high-ranking search result that comes back, and your page results will simply come back using an LLM's understanding of concepts to sort the search results coming back. What's really cool about this is it's experimental right now, but it's relatively close, I understand, to being not experimental. And what's also really cool about it is it's a first way you can implement an AI feature in your website at relatively low risk, because this is not a chat bot that's like summarizing your content and like writing stuff back to you, and it can go off the rails, or if you're using Grok or something, like it might sound like Elon or something, like so there's no way it can go off the rails. The worst case scenario is it gives you crummy search results, right? So that's a really cool first step to integrating AI in our websites, and making what is the equivalent of a really expensive search service with relatively low cost API key calls. I do not have time to talk about every module that is available in the AI module suite, but there is AI agents, AI API Explorer, AI logging. These three are kind of for like AI development and like debugging and figuring out what's going on in the system. Then there's a whole bunch of modules that extend, think of them as more agents that the assistant can access. So ECA integration, forms. So like make the crazy web form with like that. I'm really excited about because that's like super labor intensive. Agents Extra just expands other modules. I imagine that's going to just become like that kind of content will probably be rolled into the respective modules in the future. But I feel like that's views and some other places. And an interesting one is AI external moderation. So when you do have content that comes back from an AI that you display to users, you can actually like send it, instead of, say it comes from OpenAI, or let's say Grok for a funny example, an inappropriate Grok response comes back, you actually send your response to a different AI moderator to double check it to make sure it's appropriate before you then display it to your end user. So kind of like an AI double check through two different systems. And then we've got our content editor tools. So AI bulk image generation. So if you come across a website where the alt tags have been neglected for a long time, this is awesome, right? Like enable it, bulk generate it, don't trust them, review them, read them, and then for the ones that are awkward, fix them, but it's so much faster than people just don't like. I've seen it many a time where they're like, this is a mountain and I just can't get started. So this was a great way to just get started. AI translation, so using the proper Drupal translation system where you send content over to get translated by an AI system and it comes back. AI validations. So say I let people on my hypothetical, on the website, doesn't yet exist, we'll get there soon, for uploading cat drawings. You describe what breed of cat is it. I could make a validation where they fill it in, and if someone fills in something that's like a dog breed, and be like, nah, sorry, it passes that off to AI. It's like, nah, that's a dog, not a cat. And it comes back and could use validation that's actually running on a large language model. And then finally, AI automators, super cool. Upload your content, and let's say it reads your blog post, analyzes it, reads your taxonomies, picks the matching taxonomies for you based off the content. So like content is created kind of like on save automatically through AI tools. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. Really what is exciting about for me in the future is this expanding support for new and different AI services, which I think was a really cool strategic initiative. Be like, let's not make an open AI integration. Let's make an integration that can bundle into everything. So new future services, these things come, like cool new models come out every week or two. So like we're not attached to any one system. And then this expanding ecosystem of agents that the folks that run modules can enable the AI assistant to like understand what people are asking with and interacting with those prompts. Both super exciting to see these things come together. Thank you.